G'day sports fans and welcome to Home Crowd Sports 4-Pointer Podcast. I'm Kenny Andres. To my right, Mr. Ben. To my left, Drew. And we're going to be covering 4 different points about the NRL. Starting with the Kalyn Ponga experiment. Drew, I'll start with you. Mate, it seemed like last year, after his State of Origin performance, the plan is to move him to 6.
And I don't understand it. Like, he's so young in his career. I would have given it another year. He's so good at the back.
20 years old.
Why would you mess with that? Like, I just don't understand it. I understand the need to have a 5'8" in there in today's game, but when you have one of the best fullbacks in the comp, why would you move him? Like, it took the Broncos how long to slide Lockyer?
He was about 27 or something.
You know, they probably had a better 5'8" at the time, but mate, give him a couple of years and see how you go. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, look, I don't understand the move. Kalyn is an extremely potent exponent at that fullback position. I mean, they've got the option to play him as a second 5'8" there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he definitely could do with a few more years in that fullback role, just to understand the backline movements more than anything, the spacing, positioning, and then when he gets a little bit more mature and a little bit more sure of his kicking game, which is another thing there, then to move him up into the front line. That being said, I've got 100% faith in this kid, and I would not be surprised if come Origin time he's actually in the mix for a halves spot for Queensland. I honestly think that he's that good. The transition period, half a year, and I think he's going to be really comfortable. Mitchell Pearce is a great halfback.
So he's an organisational halfback.
He's an organisational halfback who's going to give Kalyn a lot of opportunity to be able to roam, and he's going to learn a lot from Mitchell Pearce. So I think that's only going to really fast track his training. But yeah, I do have to agree. I would have him at fullback. He's a lot.
I'd give him another year, just to, like you said, learn the game. Learn from a good halfback in Mitchell Pearce. Just watch how he moves. Watch where he moves, why he moves, and then identify. All right, well, how I would play off that, being much closer to the play ball, would be this.
Is it? But I mean, I just don't understand why you can't do that from fullback. I mean, is that part of the logic, perhaps, where moving him to 5'8", he kind of has to roll with him. He'll be closer to the action. They
may move him to fullback in defence anyway. So maybe that's the thinking. Maybe it's technically he's playing number 6, but he might just play number 6 in attack and then go back to fullback in defence.
Would Connor Watson not have been a better stopgap measure at 5'8"? Someone who's played hooker, he's played fullback. Yeah. He apparently was a bit shaky in the trials, but I don't read too much into that because I think Connor Watson is going to be a great footballer. I think he's a good footballer already.
They've got Levi and Kurt Mann as well, don't they? At number 9, so he could have filled in as well.
At least for the first half.
Even
of
if
the
it's
season.
just 20 to 40 minutes, like 20 minutes a game.
See, my worry about bringing Kalyn Ponga into 5'8" too early is that being so young, he's obviously at the peak of his pace.
Yeah.
He loses all that spacing and that timing if he's at 5'8". He's right in the line. He doesn't get that. He's not going to pick up the ball off a kick and have 20 meters of space before he even hits a line. How much do the Knights actually lose out by not having that option anymore?
Totally agree. I think while you're young, and Kalyn I do believe has the potential to be a more structured player, but right now he's at his peak performance, and it reminds me a lot of Anthony Milford, where they're instinctive. They can play in space, just let them react and let them use that part of the game, because as they get older they lose that.
Yeah.
So use that now as a fullback, and you can continue learning while that process is happening. And he's 20 years old.
And have a look at Milford now. I mean, I wouldn't say he's a top 10 5'8" in the league.
Not at all.
And I think
that's
not on him. That's on more. He just looks lost at times. And I think a lot of that came from just dominating a fullback, understanding that role, and then just being shoved into 5'8", because all fullbacks will eventually end up at number 6.
Which brings me to the next point. Is it becoming a little just the vogue move to if you find a dynamic fullback, to move him to 5'8" real quick? I feel like over the last 10 years that's been the move.
Yeah, ever since Lockyer nailed it, it seems like everyone. I mean, I think even Laurie Daly went from 3 into 6 and it looked good. But yeah, no, I agree. As soon as Lockyer did it and it was like a big hit, everyone's been trying to shove number 1s into number 6s.
Look, arguably the greatest fullback of all time, Billy Slater. He was able to avoid making that move, but he played like a 5'8" from fullback, and there probably aren't many fullbacks in the history of rugby league that were better in offensive backline movements and playing and in being that key cog in backline movements than Billy Slater. But he was able to avoid actually going into the halves.
Well, my question is, why is that?
Why?
Is it just because, they're geniuses down in Melbourne and they realise there's talent at fullback? And should other teams be, instead of trying to make some genius move to 6, appreciate the genius that is at fullback at the moment?
Well, Melbourne had a spine that you wouldn't really move around, really, didn't they? So they had, although 5'8" was always a contentious position for Melbourne.
They could have
5'8"
easily
was always a contentious position.
him into 6. He was just so dominant at the back. Like, why would you mess with that?
But I feel like we're getting hints of that from some of these players right now, and no one wants to seem to explore that. They feel like shove that into the 6 jersey.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, Ponga. Like, Ponga's top 5 in the league at number 1, maybe even top 3 on his day. Mm-hmm. Maybe the best, fullback in the league on his day. Yeah, and 1 year in, I don't get it. I'm not sure that it's going to work, to be honest. Like, I reserve judgment. I've got full faith he's an amazing football player and he probably makes it work. But this year, I think he might struggle just to figure it all out because he's so fresh in his,
Well, I'll make the statement now. I don't think he's going to be a bad 5'8". I think he's just going to be wasted at 5'8". I think.
No, I agree. I think he could have much more power at the back.
But of course, it also depends on how they're going to play him. I mean, you look at the way Brisbane play, they've got 2 running halves, Cody Nikorima and Anthony Milford. And, Milford benefits from the threat that Nikorima is by digging into the line. He gets a bit more space. You have to imagine that's in the cards for someone like Ponga, but, you have Mitchell Pearce there, who's an admirable runner. He's known as a more structured sort of guy, playing before the line. It'll be interesting to see how they use him. I mean, I don't see them being a pure left and right combination.
I think Ben made a good point. You've got a really good organising half in Mitchell Pearce. If you're going to have to be shoved into the 6 and try and learn your trade there from being a dynamic ball runner, Mitchell Pearce is probably one of the guys you want on your side, steering you around, putting you in the gaps. Yeah. It could be a lot worse. Like, I look at Nikorima and Milford and think they're both pretty good explosive runners, and they're kind of instinctual players, like you said. Sometimes that can be a bit directionless. You need that guy to be the setup guy, and both of those guys are sort of trying to be the guy too much a little bit. Can lead to being a bit, dog without its tail. What's the saying?
I think that being
dog without a bone.
Something without something. But yeah, no, I look. If it's going to succeed, it could probably succeed with Mitchell Pearce on your side because, he'll take him under his wing and put him through some.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, they're developing a bit of a monstrous pack down in Newcastle. And I think, if it just gets him closer to those guys, trailing with potential offloads, getting quick face balls from forwards willing to play the ball at the line, I mean, maybe it just helps him get even more involved.
I would like to have seen them, if they had a really, truly great number 9, they could dart out and create space and maybe take 2 guys on in the line and then put him through a gap. I think he could really flourish at 6, but without that, I don't know how these 2 guys are going to sort of balance it out there. We'll see. Like, with a really, truly good 9 that just takes darting runs and then puts him over, he could be truly great from that point, but I don't know.
Well, Kalyn Ponga experiment, and 2019 it'll certainly reveal whether we'll be talking about this next year or not. All right, point number 2, boys. We're going for the penalty goal here. The North Queensland Cowboys. Obviously, last year the retirement of one Jonathan Thurston, a man of which many may consider to be competing with Joey as the number 1 player of all time. But he's gone now, and the Cowboys, they need to move on. Their current spine, it exists of Tamari Martin, the Ghost, name escapes me at the moment.
Michael
Morgan, the White Walker.
Jordan Carher.
Jordan Carher now there.
And Jay Granville.
Jay Granville as well.
Shout out to Jay Granville, one boy.
So that's still an impressive spine on its own. Obviously, everything looks better when you've got JT at 7. But our thoughts moving into 2019 post-Thursday?
I think it'll do them a world of good, just not having that cloud hanging over their head. I think last year kind of somewhat turned into the farewell tour of Thurston. I think Michael Morgan was injured for bits of it. I think they're their own team now. I think, like Thurston did dominate that team and was the heart and soul of that team for a long time. Last year, maybe not so much. Injuries probably, played into that more than anything else. It's not his fault. But this year, I think, Michael Morgan gets to stamp his authority on the team and say, right, this is the way we're going to play. And there's a lot of that pressure's off. And they've recruited pretty well. Like, they could have done a lot worse than Jordan Cahoon, to be honest.
Yeah. I saw a lot of criticism in forums on Facebook of Jordan Cahoon. I've always really liked Jordan Cahoon as a player. I think he shows a lot of versatility. He's a good goal kicker. To pick him up as a fullback, I heard Broncos fans going, yeah, well, good riddance pretty much. We're so happy that this guy's leaving. I, as someone who's completely unbiased, as not a Broncos fan, I would have been a bit upset. I know there's a lot of depth in the Broncos, but Jordan Cahoon's a great player and a great solid pickup in the fullback position. Now, the Cowboys don't need an out-and-out superstar at fullback. They have had the luxury of having that in the past, but they don't need it. I think that he was probably a better alternative to Ben Barber.
I agree.
Because if there are injuries, he's going to offer you that versatility. You can't do much with Ben Barber. Very safe under the high ball, good goal kicker. And I think a full pre-season under Michael Morgan's belt, I mean, would we say arguably last season was his worst season of his career? Injuries aside, Michael Morgan wasn't great last season.
Really? I thought he showed really good signs. And I think part of the reason why Cowboys faithful will probably be okay is when he had to take over at 7, he showed a level of command that I think a lot of people didn't expect from him.
I think the year before he was so good that
I might be confusing myself with the year before.
The year before when Thurston went down, he just took that team over and they looked like world beaters. They got to the grand final on his back. I think a lot of people were going into last year expecting the same Michael Morgan. Then you had Thurston, and then you had who's the forward?
JT? Tamalolo?
No, the guy that was injured. Matty Scott. And they were like, well, we're adding 2 All-Stars to this team that made the grand final. Where is he? And it just didn't work out for whatever reason. This year could be a different story. They just got all of that sort of... they're a blank slate again,
I honestly think that Thurston went 1 year too long. I think he was a little bit overcooked. And I'm not suggesting that the Cowboys would have done better without Thurston, given that Morgan was out for a lot of the season. But that's neither here nor there now. How about that Cowboys forward pack? Honestly, I think that this season, I think that they are a genuine contender. You look at that starting forward pack, you've got Josh McGuire, which was an outstanding acquisition. Broncos should have moved heaven and earth to keep that guy. Jake Granville, Tamalolo, Cohen Hess, Gavin Cooper.
Where do they all fit?
I mean, there's only one player in that starting forward pack that isn't a current or ex-rep player, and that's Jake Granville, and I'm sure we'd all agree that he is of that caliber.
Totally.
Well, is there a better forward pack at the comp than the Cowboys?
They're pretty formidable. They're at the least top 3.
Yeah.
Forward pack.
Yeah.
That's their flaw. But that's another topic. You're going to talk about players who fell out of form. Jake Granville was very up and down last year. I think a lot of their success will come back to whether he can find that form when he picked up under Greeny the first time he moved up.
Well, both these halves were a bit injured in consecutive seasons. It's hard to build those combinations when those guys are in and out of the team. He's dealing with new guys each week, so he goes on a run, but he doesn't have that backing of a new guy because he doesn't know how to read Jake as well. I think, this year, with a full pre-season under their belt, knowing exactly who's going to be in those positions, it might be a different story. I really like Jake Granville. I think he's great.
You're going to blame him? You're going to blame the halves for all those forward passes, mate?
hey, they're flat until you run too far. It's all timing. But yeah, look, we'll see. I think Hooker's going to be the least of their worries this year. Look, if that forward pack gets started, and that's going to make the halves life ridiculously easy, I think. They can get that engine room moving. The rest of that team can pretty much, take half the game off, just, running behind them.
Still got plenty of love in the outside backs as well. Felton and whatnot. Still plenty of try scoring experience on the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
watch for McDonald this year. I got raps on that guy. I think he's going to go well in that kind of back line. I thought he was pretty good at St George. I have no idea why they let him go. Maybe there's some story behind that. in that kind of backline, I think he could be very dangerous this year.
Well, speaking of players that let go, I mean, they did have a hole at fullback. It would have been handy to have a Kalyn Ponga still available too.
Could you imagine that team with Kalyn
Ponga in it?
Jeez. How dirty.
Talking about a year. Imagine if they had one more year in his contract before he could go looking for money. It would have worked out perfectly.
It would have worked great for him.
Oh, jeez.
Tamari Martin, for mine, this is make or break for him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't aim up to all that promise that he had lauded on him at the start of his career, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm thinking, where are we looking now? Who's our next potential halves prospect? Well, what do you guys think? I mean,
I think so. I think you're right. I think there is a bit of an ease stepping in when you're a replacement, for a lack of a better word, mid-season. Coming into a different season where you're supposed to be the guy, that's a whole nother headspace.
He had some good games. When he looks good, he looks great. And I agree, coming in and out of the team with different halves, sometimes he's got to be a tough proposition. He's never really been given full-time, righto, that's your position. Let's see how it goes for 6 weeks. It's tough. Yeah, it's going to be tough to... I don't know what happens with you, right? He's got great ability, and sometimes he can look great. Sometimes you just don't even know he's on the park.
He's, I think, was it 2015 when he saw some game time in the final series? He was really, really good. Or the back end of that season, he was really good.
Yeah. Him and Morgan would play well together.
Really well.
Look, they've got it in them to be a top 3 or 4 halves combination in the comp. The ability's there.
Yeah.
He's got to mature. He's got to mature, and he's got to make that role his own. He can't just be, I'm playing second fiddle to Michael Morgan. I'm the 5/8. I'm the linchpin here. I'm going to make a really good go of it.
So, in the shadow of JT. Well, that's another story for 2019. Transition screen. All right, point 3, gentlemen. The NRL. Well, they've been at the talking point of all the sporting codes at the moment, and no surprises, it's for bad behaviour or how they are or not handling the situation at the moment. Ben, I'll start with you this time. Well, they've come out. They've dropped a whole bunch of different rulings. So your take.
Look, I commend Greenberg and his stance on this. I think this is long overdue. This is over a decade overdue. I think back as far as the 2002 Bulldogs, sexual assault scandal. It's been happening further back than that, but it's become big media since probably back then, early 2000s, and we've put a lot of stopgap measures in there to show or display that we're caring enough about the subject, whether it's sexual violence or violence against women or just poor behaviour in general. It's always been stopgap measures, and it's been, okay, this player's ousted from this club only to pick up a contract the next week. And we've really not so much ignored the issue as we have just...
Band-aided it.
Yeah, band-aided it is probably, for use of a better word. So I'm a big fan of, and Kenny, you'll probably know this verbatim, the new ruling in that if you're charged for a crime that holds a maximum penalty of at least 11 years, that you're automatically suspended from the NRL pending your conviction or the outcome of the case, which I think some people might go, okay, well, innocent till proven guilty. Well, okay, you've put yourself in that position to whether you're innocent or guilty, and what you're doing is you're not only just harming yourself and whoever's involved in the situation and people's integrity and people's reputations, but you're putting the game's reputation at stake.
I think that was it. They needed a hard line as to say, right, you got to get stood down and you're right, they didn't have that line in the sand. I think they just looked at everyone and said, oh, you're all in the same basket. Having something like a serious crime on your record, well, you were in a situation to be in that situation. So I agree, I think that's a good move because, how do you've got to treat each individual incident on its own merits, but at some point you need to have some rule that says, this is your deterrent. If you get yourself in a situation like this, you're stood down immediately. There's going to be no, I was hardly done by, I'm innocent. Maybe you are, and if you are, then after the fact you have to deal with that, I guess. The NRL has to figure out a way to I don't know, figure that out. But you're right. I think too many things have gone on where people have just gone, well, we don't know if they're innocent or they're guilty. We'll just keep letting them play. It's a really bad look if you are at least accused of a serious crime and still playing on the weekend. Like, that can't happen.
No. It says to me the fact that we are taking this hardline stance now, hardline stance, or maybe the stance that we should have always taken, is that for once we're honestly believing that the game is no bigger than one player. Because for so many years it was all about, we've lost Sonny Bill Williams to rugby, we've lost the next big thing to a rival code or to another sport or what have you, and it's like, what are we doing to retain our players in the game? And I feel like we've taken the same attitude when it comes to criminal offences. Mm-hmm. We're too worried about losing this talent. But the reality of it is that next Sonny Bill Williams, there's been like half a dozen of them since Sonny Bill Williams. There's an endless production line of prodigiously talented young players coming through the league that if we lose one to the game because they've done the wrong thing, well, the next guy's right around the corner. And I'm sorry, but too bad, so sad. If you act in the wrong way, in no matter what your line of work is, well, you're putting your career at jeopardy. So I have no sympathy for these guys. And I think the NRL's done a great job, albeit it was a little bit too late.
Just about a decade late.
Yeah, a decade too late. But at least they're taking a stance. And now what they need to do is they need to look at club culture, and they need to that needs to start at a grassroots level. Mm-hmm. This boys club locker room stuff. I don't want to hamper on it too much, because we're all men here. We all love sports and we all know what it's about. And that camaraderie is a great thing. But there's a lot of negativity that starts at the earliest levels of coaching that needs to be weeded out, and there's a change in culture needs to happen.
Well, the NRL have a brand to protect. At the end of the day, they're a business, and this is a business move. Mm-hmm. And changing the culture isn't necessarily a bad thing about that. And I think the good thing about this is that, well, guess what? If you are one of these future Sonny Bill Williams, these future Andrew Johns, future Lockyers, you understand from an early age now, from under 12s, under 11s, that if you want to make football your profession, that's the standard you need to start growing up in. And the earlier we send that message, the more likely they're going to carry that onto adulthood. And I think I know it's an overcorrection, some would argue, and I understand people inside the game right now would genuinely believe it's an overcorrection, but it's not the worst thing in the world if our grown men start growing up with that intention, and they change some of the behaviour going on right about now.
I think a lot of the time, like for a while there, they just felt like they were untouchable, like they were bulletproof, and it's not really their fault somewhat, because they're taken aside at 13, 14, whatever it is these days, and said, right, you play footy and you're going to be the next Australian halfback, and you're going to be this, you're going to be that, and then so they think they own the world, and then they start making first grade, they start turning it on, everyone's up, you're going to be great, this is definitely what you're meant to be, and then you're a Todd Carney and you really you screw it up and your club sacks you, and then you go away for a little bit, but then there's 12 clubs there willing to sign you for that. So there was really no deterrent for acting out, and for the longest time there was no case where they were like, well, I don't want to be that guy, that guy had his career taken away, I don't want to be that, well, what would I do then?
Use poor behaviour as a reason to get out of contracts, to go to another club.
Mate, half our team, Todd Carney, Blake Ferguson, Josh Dugan.
Exactly. And at the time, there was an opportunity there for the NRL to do something about it, but they let it keep going for years.
That's the thing that really gets to you as a fan, especially because you watch those guys, all right, they get a little bit of punishment, and then they're turning out the next season for another team and turning it on. Josh Dugan at the Dragons there, just playing out of his skin, and you're like, well, why is he not playing for us? We sacked him, we did the right thing. Todd Carney at the Roosters, to a lesser extent Blake Ferguson. But as a fan, how am I supposed to react to that when you get a slap on the wrist and then you're playing out of your skin, and then representing your state or your country the same, that following year, even though my club did the right thing.
Backward culture, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's as a fan that really gets to you, and it's just, it was the wrong direction to keep going down. I think that at least to this point now there's a deterrent. And as a young guy coming through, you've seen guys like Ben Barber now have their careers just completely taken away from them. So if nothing else, that'll be in the back of their minds when they're out on a night out, and the other blokes are like, come on, mate, let's go and do this. You know what, I don't want to be here when this goes wrong, so I'm just going to...
And I think the difference is now is that unlike the Ben Barbers of this world who had a million chances, guess what? You have one chance this time. So if you screw it up, that's it. It's all over.
On spaghetti.
That's a lot scarier. Yeah.
This episode brought to you by Rooftop Vodka Cruises. And the fourth and final point for our 4-pointer podcast, boys, the NRL has since suggested they are open to trialling not only a top 8 but a top 10 of a 16-team comp.
I don't like it.
I'll be honest, I'm not even that comfortable with the top 8. I would love it to go to a top 6, but that's just me. But extending it now, so you no longer have to be in the top half of the comp to play finals football.
Look, it's true. I enjoy a beer as much as the next guy, but this feels like someone went out, had 12 skewies, and they just went, I've got an idea, fellas. Let me know if this makes any kind of sense to you. And then, we've all tweeted something or Facebook some ridiculous great drunk thought we've ever had. Wake up the next day and go, oh, yeah, that's out there. Yeah.
Let's make Raiders fans believe they have a chance.
Yeah. What's going on? It's like, geez.
Just to put it in perspective.
Just give everyone a trophy at the start of the year and then we can avoid it. I've got no interest in it. Even as a Raiders fan, it means that we get to get beaten one extra week. in
front of a bigger audience.
As it is, yeah. I'm glad not getting my hopes up every year.
Well, I'm glad you guys brought up the Raiders. To put things in perspective, so last year's top 8 rounded out with that 8th place were the New Zealand Warriors. 9 and 10 would have included the West Tigers and your Canberra Raiders, who their win-loss record was below 500. There were 10 wins and 14 losses.
You don't deserve to play finals football with those.
At what point
stats,
do you then get hope? I don't understand if we play. Who would we play there? The Warriors or the Dragons?
You would have been playing. First round buys at the Rabbitohs.
The Rabbitohs. Yeah. So what is?
We would have got blown off the park.
Yeah, thanks for the 60-4 fucking loss at the end of the year.
Doesn't make anyone feel
made it. Yeah, I'm showing up to watch that massacre for sure. Yeah, that's my favourite thing in the world, to watch us get smacked.
And look, I would maybe understand this if this was, a 12-game season. The NRL is one of the longer ones. It's, 26 odd rounds. That's enough.
4 rounds out whether you're a shot. And even as soon as you become a mathematical chance, you're out. And even if you get in, you're making up the numbers. And that's how it is right now. I don't know the last time we saw a team out of 8th. Was it the Cowboys a couple of years last year?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that was a fairy tale run, and that kind of blows our argument out of the water. But what was I trying to say? But that's happened once in how many years? 20 years. So, and they came from 8. They didn't come from 10th. I just don't understand it.
You're taking away the integrity of having a solid season. It's just catching fire right at the end. And that's just.
But I mean, teams into 8th catch fire. That's how you get into the 8. I get that. That's fun to watch. But even those teams generally just fizzle out eventually.
Yeah.
How much of this is watching the proverbial number 2 hit the fan all week and just coming out with the most ridiculous idea you've ever had just to distract from what's going on? A week out from the season? I'm telling you, let's just find the dumbest idea we've ever thought of in our entire lives and throw it out there so people are talking about this and getting outraged, and then they want to talk about this other stuff.
As soon as I read this, I thought they're just doing it for the money. So that's an extra week that we've added to the season. It's an extra week worth of advertising, ticket sales, all the rest of that. It's going to garner interest because those fans of teams that have finished in 9th and 10th are going to be excited because they're they might have that kind of closet shame of, we don't deserve to be here, but they're going to be happy because they're still in with a shot. So it's exciting for those fans, but it's just completely unnecessary, and it kind of makes a mockery of the code. I mean, haven't we suffered enough?
You get a final spot. You get a final spot.
Yes, we have. You know what? And they keep bringing it back to it's the US model of NFL and baseball, and the wildcard round's the most exciting round. It is over there because so few teams out of a massive league make the playoffs. So I can understand it over there because there is a fairy tale team in there sometimes that goes on a great run. But you're looking at 3/4 of the league is going to make the finals technically on this model. It's ridiculous.
It's supposed to be the best of the best competing.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. If we were a massive league of 20, 8 teams, and you're talking about a top 12, then potentially, but as it stands right now, even last year, if the Raiders made the finals, I would have zero interest in watching that game just because I knew we were going to get smacked.
We weren't going to go anywhere.
No, and
didn't deserve to be there.
No, and we didn't even have a winning season. If you have a winning season and you're in 9th place, then there's a playoff between 8th and 9th to see something like that potentially. But if you are 3 or 4 games under 500, then what the hell are you doing? You've already booked your ticket to Bali. I don't get it at all. It does sound to me like, let's just throw a crazy idea out there and get people talking about that. I don't know.
If you're wanting the most useless teams if you want to attract attention at the end of the year for the most useless teams, let's bring in relegation.
I'd hate to say this as a Raiders fan because I'd scare the hell out of me. That would be way more interesting to me than this shit. I just don't understand. If the Redcliffe Dolphins play the Canberra Raiders, they stay in the league. So Canberra win, they stay. Redcliffe win, they're in. That would be a fascinating game to me.
It'll be interesting with the ISP down in New South Wales. If their feeder team got replaced their actual top side.
That would make that would be more interesting to me in terms of this crap. I just don't understand this at all.
Well, that's the end of episode 1 of our 4-Pointer podcast. Ben, Drew, thank you for joining me. We clearly think the new finals proposal is absolutely rubbish. How would you make the end of the season a little more interesting? Let us know in the comments below, and continue watching us for more Home Crowd Sports Entertainment.